We're here because free speech is under attack. We're here because people are being convinced that socialism works. We're here because people are being judged guilty until proven innocent. We are fighting back with facts. This is not a safe zone, so buckle up, Buttercup. This is the raw, naked truth.
Trump in court, colleges overrun with antisemitism, and more. Welcome to the Raw Naked Truth. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin, and here's the news you need to know. The first ever criminal trial of a former U.S. president is underway. Prosecutors kicked off the trial of Donald Trump yesterday by arguing that the ex-president committed election fraud in 2016 by paying off adult film actress Stormy Daniels to bury an embarrassing story about her relationship with him in the lead-up to the vote. Trump's attorney countered that Trump did nothing wrong and no crime was committed. It's called democracy, Trump's attorney said. The former publisher of the National Enquirer, who allegedly engaged in catch-and-kill schemes to hide damaging information about Trump, briefly testified as the first witness in the case. Meanwhile, President Trump's $175 million bond judgment stemming from his non-jury civil trial will stand, a New York judge ruled Monday, despite New York Attorney General Letitia James's desperate attempt to invalidate it, wanting instead to start confiscating Trump's properties. Lawyers for James on Monday argued that the court should void Trump's slash judgment of $175 million. James questioned whether the company that posted the massive bond, Knight Specialty Insurance, could actually pay the bond if needed. The judge did institute procedures for the insurance company to follow to ensure the bond could be paid, but said James was attempting legal trickery in her vendetta against the former president. Pro-Hamas encampments swept across elite universities on Monday as anti-Semitic and pro-terror demonstrations at Columbia University reached a fever pitch at the start of Passover. As Columbia held classes remotely following a weekend of hateful rhetoric surrounding it, pro-Hamas encampment on the South Lawn, where incidents have included a young woman holding a sign with an arrow pointing to Jewish students stating Al-Qasim's next targets, and anti-Israel agitators shouting, "We are Hamas," and "We don't want no Zionists here." Police officials said that Columbia University leadership does not want NYPD on campus. Yet a strong police presence was seen outside Columbia's gates, where officers appeared to start making arrests on Monday afternoon, according to photos from the scene. Another similar demonstration popped up outside a New York University building. Unlike Columbia, which locked its gates amid the protests, NYU does not have an enclosed campus space, allowing the NYPD to make arrests. Encampment-style demonstrations were also erected at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and Emerson College, as well as pro-Hamas protests occurring at Yale. As anti-Semitic protests spread across the country, New England Patriots team owner Robert Kraft made it his mission to stand up to Jewish hate in the wake of the October 7th terror attacks in Israel, and on Monday he went a step further. Kraft announced he was pulling his support for Columbia University amid the anti-Semitic violence at the Ivy League school. He released a statement through his philanthropic organization, Foundation to Combat Anti-Semitism. In part, his statement read, "It was through the full academic scholarship Columbia gave me that I was able to attend college and get my start in life, and for that I have been tremendously grateful. However, the school I love so much, the one that welcomed me and provided me with so much opportunity, is no longer an institution I recognize. I am deeply saddened at the virulent hate that continues to grow on campus and throughout our country. I am no longer confident that Columbia can protect its students and staff, and I am not comfortable supporting the university until corrective action is taken. The Supreme Court seemed ready to let cities crack down on homeless encampments after Monday's arguments in which conservative justices questioned lower court findings that ordinances restricting sleeping in public amounted to unconstitutionally cruel and unusual punishment. The Oregon city of Grants Pass outlaws sleeping in cars parked on the street or in public parks with a blanket, but has no shelter able to accommodate the hundreds of homeless people who live within its limits. The Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, whose jurisdiction covers much of the western U.S., found such measures effectively criminalized homelessness, violating Eighth Amendment's precedent that forbids punishing people for their status rather than actions. Under that view, courts in the Ninth Circuit have issued injunctions that limit cities' enforcement of such ordinances. But on Monday, members of the Supreme Court's majority suggested that the Ninth Circuit's approach, which cities argue has hamstrung their efforts to address homelessness, intruded on the discretion local officials need to govern their communities. The U.S. is drafting sanctions that threaten to cut some Chinese banks off from the global financial system, arming Washington's top envoy with diplomatic leverage that officials hope will stop Beijing's commercial support of Russia's military production, according to people familiar with the matter. But as Secretary of State Antony Blinken heads to Beijing on Tuesday, the question is whether even the threat of the U.S. using one of its most potent tools of financial coercion can put a dent in complex and burgeoning trade between Beijing and Moscow that has allowed the Kremlin to rebuild a military badly mauled by more than 2 years of fighting in Ukraine. The Biden administration announced plans to hinder female athletes, introducing sweeping radical changes to Title IX that would trample on fairness for females in locker rooms, sports, and other single-sex spaces. The Title IX changes, introduced on Friday, make a mockery of the original law passed in 1972 by rewriting discrimination on the basis of sex to now include the very amorphous concept of gender identity, something that is ruled by self-identification. The new document is a dense 1,577 pages long, which Inez Feltscher-Stepman, a senior policy analyst at the Independent Women's Forum, warns is packed with fire alarm fires that affect millions of students. This touches every educational institution that receives federal money, not just universities, but every public school in America, and a not insubstantial percentage of private schools too, she said. It forces them all to be blind to the reality of sex difference in order to not separate boys and girls in areas we've come to expect. That's the Raw Naked Truth. You can catch every episode of The Raw Naked Truth at xvadio.com, the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech. We'll see you next time.